Hello everyone, welcome back to the Watch Insider. My name is Brian and thank you for logging on. I'm joined tonight by Tim Masso.
Howdy folks.
Who you're all really here to see, and we've got an exciting show for you all tonight. So lots of good watches on the table. As always, feel free, ask us any questions that you're thinking about. That's what this show is all about. Nothing to give away tonight, so viewership will probably be down just a little bit, but we hope you guys tune in for the whole show.
We've got something you can enter to win, however. Link in the description. Click to win a vintage Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch. It's the 145022, but you got to be in it to win it. Click and win.
That's a great giveaway.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a tritium dial. It's like an original tritium dial.
That's awesome.
Russell 996, Jody, Jukebox, Dustin Van Patten, True Life from Toronto, Bear Clooney Watches, Robert Dixon from Glasgow, Scotland. I can see Xavier N joining. What's up? What's up, Xavier? Tim Holohan, Sean M from Charleston, Baron OFC. Top of the morning to you. I guess you're from. Let us know where that's from. Welcome, guys. Thank you. And Logan Hall from Tennessee. Let's jump straight in. Brian, where do you want to start?
Let us start with the Jacques Dro Grand Date. So I'm going to call it the Grand Date. Tim is going to call it the Grand Dot. You guys can decide, you know, which way you prefer. I saw this watch, and the reason I brought it on was because of the dial. So, you know, I'd say that aventuring dials are really having their moment right now. They'd already done. Omega had used the dial in the past. Jacques Dro has actually used these stone dials, for many, many years, whether it's malachite, aventurine, meteorite, but it's really having a moment now with some other brands. You see it with Hermes, you see it with AP, and I just thought that it was a really nice watch to bring on because I think that the brand executed the dial and the layout very well in using this particular stone.
Yeah, I'll also say that if there's one thing Jacques Dro does, and the brand was revived in 2001, it struggles for identity, there's no doubt, but it does dials well. Before she was a star at Patek Philippe, Anita Porcher was actually doing business with Jacques Dro in the early 2000s. They do enamel, they do aventurine, they do sensational engraved pieces, and they did paillonné back when no one else was doing it. So yeah, this is a great modern tradition from a brand that frankly needs a few, but this is absolutely best in the business when it comes to dial execution and balance. They had the good taste to keep the horological elements limited and accentuate the aventurine. Now it is an interesting watch. It's got a Blancpain movement in it, doing business as a Jacques Dro, but automatic 2-barrel, 68-hour power reserve. As you can see, it's a limited series of 8 pieces.
Now, all of their watches are pretty much limited, so every watch they do is limited to whether it's like 8, 88. But this is limited to 8 pieces for the world, and you know what? I really do think Jacques Dro is an underappreciated brand.
If you're totally just into the substance of what you're getting, you don't care about brand, you don't care about history, this is as well made and beautifully detailed as anything in the world. And I'll be honest, a pre-owned Jacques Dro is probably the best buy in artisanal watches today.
Yeah. But yeah, so you know what? I saw it, and it really just struck me as being very relevant, right now. So if you don't want to, spend, I don't know what it is, 100,000+, and being told no to get the new AP Perpetual, we've got a great watch.
All right, and we got friends joining in from around the world. Okay, let's see. Mark Ormsby is joining up. I can see Andrew, Cam M from Toronto, Philip Hayden from New Hampshire, Nolan Reed from Atlanta, and Jumbo Jet Pilot waking up early with us in Hong Kong. Guys, keep it coming. Okay. We've got a question from Jukebox. Okay, first question out of the gate. I have a Coke Z serial, excellent condition, full kit and offered only good condition, two-tone Daytona watch only. Okay, so you're basically talking a full boat Coke Z serial, and this mid-2000s Coke Z is going to be traded for a decently kept two-tone Daytona without any boxes or accessories. I wouldn't do that.
I'm confused. So he's saying, is he trading one for the other?
I think he's, yeah, I think it sounds like he's being offered a decent two-tone Daytona, totally naked, for a full box, full accessory, documented, high-grade Coke Z, like 2007 serial number.
I don't think that, I really don't think that that's terrible of a trade. I mean, the Coke bezel pieces and the Pepsi bezel pieces, I would say, they made them for a while. There's a lot out there. The prices definitely range depending upon what year it was made, level of completeness. But from the perspective of a two-tone Daytona, I don't really think it's that bad.
Now, is it a? I guess a.
I think he's getting good money for his Coke in that deal.
I think the two-tone Daytona is easily the weakest of the Daytonas. I would really do your homework on what the two things are selling for. If it looks pretty clear that the Coke is worth more or scarcer, yeah, I might hold out for a better watch. I think down the road, the question is, are you taking the Daytona without boxes and papers because right now you don't quite have the funds to get the one you want with full accessories? I would say go with what you want. If you want a complete watch, save up and get a complete watch. And don't settle now because it's on the table. That's what I'd say. If you're happy with a naked Daytona and that's really what you want, boxes and papers mean nothing to you, you're going to keep it for life, maybe pull the trigger.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm actually a fan of two-tone. That being said, though, I think it ultimately really just depends on what you're looking for and, you know, making a decision and going with it. But speaking of two-tone Daytonas, I brought one here on the show tonight just because I've always been a fan of two-tone, and I think two-tone is having its day again. What I really like about Rolex's two-tone dials, and you know specifically the Daytonas, is some of the dials that are available on the watches that you really don't get to see that often because they're either not in stock at the retailer or they need to be special ordered. And this two-tone piece with the sort of like gunmetal-y gray dial with the yellow gold sub chapter ring there's, I just think that this is a beautifully executed watch, and it's so different and not something that you see all the time. And as often as you see either all gold Daytonas or all steel Daytonas, just this watch is really different and off the beaten path, and I really like that.
Yes, I would even say if you're looking at two-tone Daytonas right now, the last real weakness in the Zenith-powered Daytona market is the two-tone watches. So if you've got a little bit more money allocated for your watch and you're thinking two-tone Daytona, you're going to be able to get into a Zenith watch that in the long run is going to be worth a lot more and is objectively a lot scarcer. But if you want a watch that's a little bit newer, never polished, you know where it's been, full history, then you'd buy maybe a newer one with the Rolex in-house, just because it's easier to trace a watch that's 5, 6, 7 years old versus 2 decades. But I do think that if you're looking at two-tone Daytona today and the budget's in place, definitely get your last licks with the Zenith Daytonas because they are really the only soft spot in the Zenith Daytona market, and I really don't see that market receding. I can see the newer watches maybe coming down a little bit if there's some sort of a recession or a downturn. I don't see the Zeniths ever being worth less. But if you want a newer watch, go with the newer watch for the provenance and the ease of tracking its history. If you're a little bit more of a maybe a speculative collector looking at something that's emerging vintage, I'd say maybe think about the Zeniths.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, the Zenith is all about the steel. The all steels. As far as if you're going two-tone, I think the more modern era pieces, there's more creativity with the dials.
I'll also say that some of the more interesting watches that have been done in two-tone give you, as Brian said, a lot more dial options. The fact that the in-house caliber's been made for freaking ever means you can basically find the watch of your dreams. 2000 to the present, and it's the same watch. Okay, they added a ceramic bezel, but it's the same watch. So any variation your mind can entertain, you could probably find somewhere. I can see right here we have some questions coming in, and but we had a question about a Speedmaster Moonphase. Here it is. Jun Lum is asking, Tim, what do you think about the Speedmaster Moonphase? Is it worth buying? Torn between that and Datejust 41. What do you think?
Between
Speedmaster Moonphase and a Datejust 41.
Oh, I mean, it's tough. I think, you know what? I think that, you know, there's a room for a Datejust 41 and a Speedmaster in any collection. I think that they serve two very different purposes. Me personally, I'm probably buying the Datejust 41.
I would say realistically, ask what you want in a watch because they're so different that I can't really ask yourself, do you want to manually wind the watch? Do you want it to be swimmable? You know, there are a lot of limitations with the older Speedmaster Moonphase in particular, where it's basically a moonwatch caliber with a moonphase and a date added. You know, if you're looking at one of the newer watches, you're looking at something that's going to be so much larger and different in thickness and size and style from a Datejust 41. I really feel like the decision is between something like an Aquaterra 41 and a Datejust 41. Maybe narrow that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a more inline comparison. But you know what? A Datejust 41 with like blue stick dial, like, I mean, again, I just think that they have nailed that watch down to a freaking T. And it's beautiful, it's elegant, you can dress it up, you can dress it down. You know, as far as if you were only ever going to have maybe like one watch, like your only watch could be a Datejust 41.
I would say if you're considering specific Speedmaster Moonphase watches, like the Speedmaster Aventurine, that's easily the choice. Don't even think twice. That's an amazing watch. That is one of the old moon watch calibers with a date and a moonphase and an Aventurine dial, and it's jaw dropped. It's also a completely different price point. So if you're looking at like a gold or two-tone Datejust 41, maybe they're price point equivalents. Also, remember, if you're looking at an older Omega, you know, you're talking about an older watch out of warranty, whereas a new Rolex, you're going to get a 5-year warranty. Another reason to compare it to something like an Aquaterra, because Omega now does 5-year warranties.
So I'm getting some chatter here in the chat. I need to give a special shout out to Margot, who I promised that I would give a shout out to. So I would say she's probably one of, you know, my 5 fans that I have. The rest are your fans. But Margot saves my life every single day. So Margot, this is your shout out.
All right, Horology Homie is asking our opinion on the new Grand Seiko Elegance Collection Urushi dials, the lacquer. What do you think? Have you seen them? The new manual wind Elegance Collection. Basically, there are 4.
Oh, this is the one that just got launched.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
What do you think?
But are they? They're not new, are they? I thought that they came out with something. I think they used this movement last year.
I think it's a new movement because there's been a lot of press about this being the first manual wind 9S in a while. You're right, there was a manual wind in the recent past.
Yes.
I think this one's different because of the small second, because of the open case back, a little bit different. It's the 9S 63, and it's a 39mm watch. That's the key thing. Is that like the new sweet spot for dress watches?
I think 39 is the new sweet spot for everything. I don't want to say just dress watches, but I think that between 39 and 41 is just a really nice size. It fits a lot of different people. 38 can start feeling a little bit too small. 41 for people can start feeling a little bit too big. Like I would say 39 is in my sweet spot. But I think that, you know, we talk about Grand Seiko all the time. I think that they're doing everything right. I think that they are focusing on the educated watch consumer. And not trying to go so, you know, mainstream. I think that they've got their niche here in the States. I think that they're producing watches for their niche. And I would say, of all the brands that are expanding rapidly in the States and have made inroads in a short period of time, they've done an exemplary job.
I think if I had to say which one is my favorite, it's the blue dial. And I believe the blue dial is not an Urushi dial. There are 4 references. 3 of them are lacquer. I don't believe the blue dial is. I'll also say if I had to nitpick a little bit, I would say that the 9S63 with the display case back looks like a converted automatic movement. It has big, broad, blank spots on the bridges where clearly there was supposed to be some sort of winding system. That's really the only nit I can pick. Overall, it's a strong offering. Question from Watch Doctor. What do you think of the new red JLC Reverso?
I like the watch. I think that, you know, the blue performed extremely well. So, you know, it was expected that they would come out with another color. You know, if you look at the secondary market as a whole, you see how well their red dial piece did. And I think that that was probably part of the basis for the decision to go with this color. They saw how well the red dial pieces were selling for over retail in the secondary. These are the 1931s. And how well they did at the boutiques. So, you know, black wouldn't have been the right choice. I think green has been beaten into the ground a little bit. And
I don't know if greens. They did 26 green reversos.
No, I'm saying green as a color. A lot of brands are producing green dials, and I think that doing a rouge color dial is a little bit different. It's off the beaten path, and I honestly think that they did the watch justice. It was a really nice color to choose.
I think people ask this question comparatively. Compared to the 2012 red Reverso Rouge, that was a lacquer red. This is more of a metallic red.
Yeah, it's a shiny. This is shiny. That was more matte.
That was also a 2-hand watch with minimal dial text. This is a 3-hand small second, and it's got a lot more printing on it. They're very different watches in person. It's like a burgundy versus almost a scarlet, and I don't think you're ever going to confuse the two side by side.
No.
See in person to make the ultimate decision.
But I think that was their basis for making a decision to go with that color. I mean, you know, they saw the success of one and they wanted to build upon it. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think that it was really nice. I think that them doing different editions of different colors is a good move, to do. I mean, if they ever come out with purple, I'm all over that.
It's also a thicker watch. Not much thicker, but it is thicker. Bear Clooney watches. Tim, if you're buying a Rolex for yourself, what would be your choice? Milgauss Z Blue, and no second thoughts. I love the color. I love the fact that it's almost an anti-Rolex Rolex. It's well priced. It's a handsome piece. I don't believe there's a crazy market on those right now. So it's a pretty honest watch as those things go. Plus, it's proof that Fortress Rolex can crack a smile, and I value that kind of irony.
Let's talk about some of the watches on the table. So we've got some heavy hitter here tonight. I'm like stumbling all over my words. So some heavy hitters The alliteration there.
There's
gets
no
me.
clock. This is not the
alliteration
Super
gets me
Bowl.
there every time. So here we have a couple RMs. So we don't really bring too many on the show, but I thought that these were some nice, cool pieces. So here we have an RM002. So this was one of the first watches that RM produced. It's a carbon fiber dial with a tourbillon. In their rose gold case. So the carbon fiber dial was actually the version 2 of this watch. There was a version that was produced first that was all black. Carbon fiber came second. And these early watches, for me, are his best fitting pieces. Like, these are the watches that, when I think RM, that really do it for me. And we have one other on the table that I want to show in conjunction with this one. Tim will tell you a little bit more about the movement, but I want to try the watch on real quick so people can get a feel for size. So most RMs, I would say, are too thick and too big for my wrist.
They got bigger with time.
They've gotten bigger with time, but this is probably one of the most comfortable watches that I've ever had on. I mean, it fits absolutely perfectly. It fits a small wrist. It fits a big wrist. I would say, in terms of aesthetic, it has everything that I would want. It has the look and feel of an RM. It has a killer sick movement to boot, and just overall, if I was going to pick one, this would be the one I would pick.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece. Less than 45 millimeters lug to lug means this is a watch almost anyone can wear. If your wrist were truly petite, 13 centimeters, you could wear this.
Was this on the show yesterday?
This was on the show yesterday. We can add a few other details, though.
Yeah.
The watch is super slim, and I want to show you what I mean by super slim. It's really comparable to a Rolex Daytona, and I mentioned this yesterday, but you can see it now in profile. The watches are almost exactly the same thickness. The Richard Mille is only 12.4, and the Daytona is typically between 12.2 and 12.4. It does vary by case material, oddly enough, but they're so comparable that you could wear either with the same sleeve. Another thing I want to talk about with the Richard Mille is that this watch was actually engineered at the same time that the Royal Oak concept was being developed, and a lot of the same features wound up in the same watches. As you can see, you've got the torque meter assembly that shows you the torque output from the main barrel. You've got a power reserve, and then you've got a tourbillon, but you've also got this clutch system. The crown doesn't actually pull out or push in. There's a little pusher on the crown. Now this puts it in setting mode. This puts it in neutral mode. It does nothing. And now this puts it in winding mode, and you can wind the watch. The idea is to preserve the stem tube, and the crown seal, typical weak spots in watch construction. The movement is carbon fiber. The watch came out in 2002. The carbon fiber movement came in 2004. And the watch is super svelte, although it has that wonderful exo look of a Richard Mille. You can see the columns where the screws drive into the case. This is a surprisingly hand-finished movement. And you can see the remarkably complex keyless works that selects those different functions. That can come out as a module. The key here is that this is an Audemars Piguet built watch, and that is what you're seeing. That's why the finish is at a higher level. It's high mech. There is no Dubois, Dupraz, or Vaucher in this watch. And it's a lovely piece. Now, speaking of Vaucher, we do have one with all of that inside.
So this is an RM005 in white gold, so another early RM white gold case. My preference really is the titanium one, but again, they made it in white gold, rose gold, and titanium, and all are great. This one is thinner than the Turb, fits remarkably well, and to me, these are some of the best watches that he ever made.
This is like Richard Mille week on the channel. We've had an overdose of the brand every single day.
But these older ones are great. Some of the newer ones with the NTPT red and blue and green. So
I'm not
and the candy watches, those are a little bit hard for for me to really appreciate. But these older ones, I just think were they were avant-garde at the time. He went off in a completely different direction. He was doing something that nobody was doing, and you really see that in his early works. And I don't want to compare it ever to F.P. Journe, because I would never dare even utter that name with RM. But I think that these early pieces and how you've seen the transition of a brand move in a different direction, I think is a really interesting pattern to see.
I will say this, it's purely by accident. We had the 30-minute monologue on Richard Mille on the Monday show. Then the RM002 showed up for yesterday's show, and now we've got two of them on the table. It's just been a remarkable coincidence. It's a cool brand. It's not actually a brand we carry, so we're not terribly given to shilling for them, but I will say they are fun, they're easy to wear, and they're polarizing. You take them or you leave them. Richard Mille is not a watchmaker, so he doesn't have that appeal F.P. Journe has. Instead,
Correct.
It's a cult of personality.
Exactly.
And it's almost like a mini community of owners who are totally into them. You're either into them or you're out of it, and there's no middle ground.
And I think that I guess the similarity that I would draw is that less about the watchmaking and more that the brand itself beats from a person. Like F.P. Journe beats from F.P. Journe, and you see that in the body of work that he does and the watches that he produces. And RM beats from Richard Mille. And I think that when you look at the successful brands today, especially the larger independents, you know, F.P. Journe, Patek Philippe, even RM, that there's a pulse coming from somebody.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. I also wonder if there's maybe an upper limit to the volume that kind of brand can achieve. RM is going to test it because I believe they're pushing past 5,000 watches a year now, and that's on a completely different scale than like the personality-driven brands. F.P. Journe with his 600 to 900 a year, Max Busser with his 250 to 500 a year, and of course David Thune with like 150.
As much anymore, but so we say, how do you hear? We are not a dealer for RM.
No. We have them from time to time. We're a pre-owned watch vendor.
So we have 2 more watches on the table and not a whole lot more time left. Let's pick up the AP because we just mentioned one. So this is a really cool piece. This is a rose gold Royal Oak chronograph, Leo Messi edition, limited to 400 pieces. So this is I believe this was the first limited edition that they did with the new 41mm Royal Oak case. Is that correct?
You know, honestly, I believe this was because it came out literally the year of the 41. This was a 2012 limited edition, so they came out at the same time.
And they did it both. They did it in rose gold. They did it in, was it stainless, and platinum.
Every version of this watch has one key common thread. There is no tapisserie dial, and there's a tantalum bezel, as well as tantalum intermediate links. Now, the total series was 1,000 pieces. This one was 400. This is a completely different look, and you have to slap yourself and remind yourself it's not an offshore. It's not part of that continuity. They went with the original Royal Oak chronograph for Leo Messi, and the result was sublime. Slim, wearable, impressive wrist presence, and with the tantalum, almost blue-gray bezel, it is a truly unique aesthetic. I think Audemars Piguet has taken the approach of making fewer but better special editions since 2012.
Yeah, and I think that this to me was beautifully executed. I like that they came out with them in platinum, rose gold, and steel, with obviously steel being the most, then rose, then platinum. The watch was executed very nicely. It was different enough from the original that it drew notice, but similar enough that it didn't get too crazy like some of their other editions. And these have been some of their Messis have been some of their most successful editions to date.
Also, you can see that the 41 is no joke. This is why the 38mm chronograph came back this year. This is almost like wearing an offshore. I say almost because it's not thick, but in terms of the physical plot of wrist real estate it occupies, it's absolutely equal to a 42mm offshore. That said, the dial is really the key to the appeal of this one, the dial and the bezel. And you can see the dial is both satin-finished metal and tritone. It has silver, it has anthracite, and it has rose gold. This is beautifully warm, and although all versions of this watch are good, I would say this is probably the version that can be considered great, and it's right down to the use of that warm gold tone in rose.
Yeah, and I think tantalum and rose, just the colors play off of each other very nicely. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why this is my favorite version of the watch, is just that, that dark gray with the rose is a very nice combination.
I also love the triple finish, the case back of this one. You could see that the center is a blasted frosted profile with raised and relieved high polished Royal Oak logo, and then circumferentially it's a circular brushed grain. So this is a triple finished case back, and I do appreciate that attention to detail, especially where it will rarely be seen.
Okay, I think we've got, one more piece left?
We got one more piece left. Let's rock it.
Let's rock it. So we've heard a lot of chatter about Omega tonight on the show. So here we have a 18-karat yellow gold Speedy reduced. So I actually think I prefer the watch on the yellow gold bracelet. Maybe I'm just not feeling the black croc strap. It would probably be better suited to maybe a suede brown. But overall, these older yellow gold Speedy reduced are awesome watches. I think that they have that sort of vintage feel while not really being that old. They've got the sapphire crystal case back, which is really nice, which some of these older Speedies did not have. And overall, it's just an example of when some of these older Omegas that they were producing are just really relevant today.
And this is truly a vintage watch. We don't think of the 90s as vintage, but this is a model that came out in 1993, and the hallmarks on this example are pre-1995, so you have a pretty narrow band when you know this watch was made. And the world was a different place. I mean, heck, Richard Nixon was still alive when this thing was made. And, you know, steam engines were still being used widely around the world. That was a different time. And this was a different kind of watch. Discreet, modestly sized, yellow gold, but not bombastic. This is a rare colored gold watch that you can wear with discretion, taste, and understatement. That's one of the things I love most about it. The cleanliness of the dial, the balance without a date, the unbroken dial with applique indices, and the way that Omega used several different finishes and just one primary color to achieve contrast. That's not easy to do. The blackened hands at center, for me, cement it. That's a nice pop against the gold base. This feels like a vintage watch, and I don't mean early 90s. I mean, it embodies the spirit and the elegance of the best mid-20th century dress watches in a modern automatic Speedmaster.
Yeah, no. So, and I really like the gold tone on tone. A lot of these you've also seen them having the black bezels, and I really like the solid gold bezel in this piece. It really ties in nicely with the overall case. But I think we have a question about the price.
Yeah, and I'm going to look that up. I actually do have access to our internal database. I pulled that up. I knew someone would ask the question. I know you guys. Okay, that watch...
It is not posted yet, so the pricing is not yet done.
Okay.
But so what we'll do though is I guess it's Eastwood Tillman that asked. I'm going to put my email in. You can email me and I'll get you the price. Some of these are I took before they were posted.
Okay, fair enough. It'll be a bit more than a modern Speedmaster Professional, but not nearly as much as if you were to buy a current-day gold Omega Speedmaster. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I know some of you are getting up early, some of you are staying up late.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
That's a big deal for us, because this is totally easy. We're about to go home. Thank you very much to everyone who joined. Remember, link in the description. I want you to win that Omega. I want it to be one of our YouTubers. Thanks to you, thanks to Brian,
and
thanks to my crew.
We're calling the person on the show live for the next winner. So you heard it here now. Whoever wins, we're gonna have like it's gonna be like one of those radio shows where you punk somebody, but it's not. They're gonna be calling to
fingers crossed he doesn't have something else going on.
Yeah. So
he'll be happy.
What size is the Speedy Reduced?
Speedy Reduced is a 39. That is a 39.
39. Okay.
It's coming back.
Well, thank you guys for logging on. As always, if you have any questions or if there's anything that you want to see on the show, feel free, email myself or Tim, write something in the comments. You know, we tailor this show to you guys. I hope that you like what we bring on, and we're always happy to bring on what you want to see. So again, my name's Brian. This is Tim. This is the Watch Insider, and thanks for logging on.
Good show.